Hi, good day. We're here with Gilroy Lino, who is a mortgage
Loan officer.
loan officer, and he's also a real estate investor. He was a real estate agent in his past,
Yeah, prior life.
yeah,
Yeah.
prior life. He was a real estate agent. So, good morning, Gilroy. I would like you to introduce yourself to the audience.
Okay. My name is Gilroy Lino. Currently, I'm a mortgage loan officer with one of the major banks. I'm not going to mention the name of the bank,
Right.
but I've been in mortgage about 27 years. Prior to that, I was a real estate agent.
Yes.
I was a real estate broker
Right.
from New York City. And I've done both. I've showed houses, and I also flip, build. I have rental property. So everything real estate is what I do.
Yes. And can you bring us back to your early years of going to school?
Okay.
Um,
Went to college in New York City, St. John's University. My major was paralegal studies. My goal was to work in a law firm, go to law school, actually be a lawyer. Um, I worked in a law firm for 2 years out of college. I didn't like it. I realized that's not what I wanted to do. I started doing real estate on the evenings and weekends. I worked from 9 to 5 in the law firm, getting into the office about 6:30 p.m. to 10 o'clock, well, 9:30 most nights, but I work 7 days a week. This is my early years, but that's how I got started. Started doing real estate, showing houses, knocking on doors, cold calling. I did old school real estate before there was internet.
right, right. And from and what led you into finances from financing from real estate?
Well, opportunity came, and this is 1997. Back in those days, people were making a killing selling houses. We were averaging commission. The houses were a lot cheaper.
Oh,
So 3% commission on average on 200,000 was 6,000. Then you had to split with your broker. So it wasn't a ton of money to be made.
right.
I got an opportunity to work in an in-house call center, mortgage call center. It was a flat base salary with commission. And I was happy. I said I don't have to go out and show houses. Showing houses is a lot of work. You might work with one client for like a couple of months, it's every day, and it's kind of frustrating. So it was an opportunity for me to learn all the different various programs without the pressure of being in front of people. It was in-house sales. I just had to take the phone call.
Right.
So I found it like much easier than showing houses.
Right. You would say your real estate journey collab with your where you at this point?
Yeah, it's funny. In real estate, I did door knocking, cold calling, a lot of sales training. They teach you objection handling techniques, how to converse with people who are selling. I did for sale by owners. So when I got into mortgage, I thought it was easy. It's just a matter of selling a product or program. You weren't burning your gas. You weren't showing houses. You might make less, but you do more volume. I think the real estate prepared me for what I'm doing now. And I already had the work ethic to get up every day, so I found it easier.
Right. And law. How does law get into that? Your law background.
Well, yeah, well, my law background is I didn't get deep into law. I never did really become a paralegal, go to law school. But I think it taught me what I didn't want to do. It taught me that I couldn't be behind a desk pushing paper.
Right.
Sometimes we go to school for one thing, and at least I can say I tried it. I worked in a law firm. I worked with attorneys. I saw that many of them weren't happy doing what they were doing.
Right.
They had big student loans. They were getting paid $100,000, but they were there Christmas Eve, New Year's Day. And I realized that's not what I wanted. I didn't want to be tied to a desk. I realized I want to be out in the streets. I wanted to make my own hours.
Right.
In real estate, you had the benefit of it's what you put into it, right?
Yes.
Same thing with mortgage. Mortgage is what you put into it.
Right.
And real estate taught me also that you got to pick up your phone. The early bird gets the worm.
Right.
I work with so many people, and they want to get into real estate.
Right.
They want to get into mortgages, but they don't have the work ethic. They make excuses. You can't be successful and make excuses. At the end of the day, if you don't return a call, that potential client, whether they're buying a house or getting a mortgage, they're gonna call someone else.
Right.
So I always feel, even now, I go away, I have my laptop. I don't lose business,
Yes.
right? Within reason.
Yes. So now with your current job, you're a
Mortgage loan officer.
mortgage loan officer.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Well, my
Who?
job is to pull credit, look at the income, credit, assets of the individual, and determine if they're looking to purchase a house, depending on how much they qualify for. My job is to structure the loan, is to find the right program that'll fit their situation, look at their income, their assets, and determine what's their maximum buying power. If they're a first-time buyer, we have grants available for first-time buyer. Grants are monies that don't have to be repaid. Many of the grant programs, there's based on income. Everyone's asking for grants, but if you're making over a certain amount of money, I had an attorney 6 months ago. She was making almost $300,000 a year. You think she got a grant? No, she couldn't get a grant. She made too much money.
Oh.
And the grants are based on household income.
Oh.
Okay. But it's opportunity. I worked when I was in New York. I worked for some of the local nonprofits. That's the benefit. I worked in New York as a community lending officer. I do all kinds of programs,
Yes.
but for some reason I do a lot of first-time buyers. So I was working with the local housing agencies in New York City. At that time, they had grants. Again, it's income driven. Now I'm in Virginia, and I'm doing the same thing. It's a more affordable homes in Virginia, although people in Virginia don't feel that way.
Right.
But yeah, so my job is to structure the deal, find the right program for them. If they're looking to build a house, I do construction loans also.
Right.
If their credit is challenged, I do FHA, VA. And the thing about me, Ansel, is that if I can't do the loan, I'm gonna tell you up front, or I might put you in the right direction of someone else who can help you.
So, are you more saying you're working for a client, or you working for the for the bank?
Now I work for the bank, but my job for the bank is to find the right program for that particular client.
Okay.
If you call me and say, "Hey, I want to buy a house," I'm gonna say, "Okay."
Yes.
Who's gonna? First question is, I'm gonna ask you a series of questions. Who's gonna be on the loan? Is it you? Is it you and your spouse? Are you by yourself? Then I'm gonna ask you how long you've been in your job. We require at least a 2-year work history.
Right.
And then I'm also gonna ask you, are you self-employed or are you salaried? Meaning, are you working for yourself? Are you a 1099 earner or W-2 pay stub earner?
Right.
If you're self-employed, I'm asking you for tax returns. So I ask you a series of questions based on what you're trying to do. I'll ask you, are you a first-time buyer also?
Right.
I'll ask you if you're a veteran. I'll also ask you, how's your credit? Sometimes people tell the truth. And they say, well, my credit is shot, or my credit is good, but at the end of the day, I have to look at the credit and see what your credit score is.
Okay, so if I am a government worker, I work for the city in Virginia, and my wife have her business. She do here, and we have one kid. We want to get a mortgage for a house. What's our first start?
Well, what you said, you're a government worker. That means you're W-2. You get a pay stub. Your wife now is a hairstylist. She's off the books. She's self-employed.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for her tax returns.
Right.
In some cases, a lot of folks who are self-employed, they write everything off, right? Which doesn't help. We all want to save money and not pay Uncle Sam, but at the end of the day, the bank looks at your adjusted gross income, your income after deductions.
Right.
They don't look at your if you gross 100,000 in sales, like let's say your wife, she made 100,000 in sales, meaning that's how much money she made.
Right.
But then she wrote off 80,000, meaning she had 80,000 deductions. We're not looking at the 80, we're looking at the 20.
Right.
So now we're going to put that 20,000 income with your income. That will have reduced your buying power. So a lot of times I'm going to educate your wife or who's self-employed. Say, well, hey, if you're writing everything off, you have to do it different.
Right.
That's why I tell people, don't wait until, come to me beforehand. Don't wait till you're ready, your lease is up, and you got to move, and you need to move real quick. This is what, February. Right. You'll come to me and say, I have to move by March 31st. Right. And I'm going to say, I'm going to pull your credit, and then we're going to find we have a problem. Right. It might take you 6 months to resolve the problem. So it's best to find out now and get pre-approved, unless you can know where you stand.
Yes. Now, we got that house. Now we want to buy a second house.
Okay. So buying a second house, typically you can't go first time buyer. You have a house ready, and I'm going to ask you what your second house is. Are you going to live in the house? Is it going to be for rental purposes? Right. That's going to determine your down payment. If you say, well, hey, we're going to live in the house, then it has to be a house. It has to justify that you're going to live there, because the down payment requirement for a primary residence is different than an investment property. Right. If you're going to live there, you could do 5% down. Right. 3.5 to 5% down per payment. If you're going to say, well, we're going to rent this property, if you're going to do a rental property, it's 20% down for a single family.
Right.
You're buying a 2 to 4 unit, it's 25% down. Now, you would have to qualify carrying both payments. You know, if you have no landlord experience, the bank will require that your income can support both payments.
Yeah.
But you may say to me, well, we plan on selling that. That's what I'm asking you too. Do you plan on selling your current home in order to buy the new home? That's what some people do. They like, my house, I bought it 10 years ago for $200,000. Now it's worth $500,000. I'm gonna make a nice profit of $200,000. So that's the discussion we're gonna have. Are you gonna use the equity or the money you make from the current home to buy the new home?
Yeah.
You know, so that's what we're gonna have. And some people want to keep the house.
Yes.
If you want to keep the house, your income has to support both payments, right? Whatever income you're bringing in has to pay the current mortgage and a new mortgage.
So we can go and tell the bank this is an investment, and we have renters who will come in and rent the house.
Good question. See, before 2008, it was the biggest housing bubble, foreclosures. Those who remember, it was a rough time in real estate, and it was a lot easier back then. So in 2008, what you described, we would get a lease. You would say, hey, I'm going to rent this house out. I have a lease. My mortgage is $1,500. I'm gonna rent it out for $2,500, right?
Yeah.
The $2,500 pays the $1,500.
Right.
You know, but in 2008, we allowed you to provide a lease.
Yes.
But upon investigation, after all those foreclosures, the banks realized that people were making up leases, right? So the bank looked at all aspects of how they did business. They started changing. They started tightening up.
Right.
It was a loophole, right? You might be an honest person
Right.
and give me a legitimate lease, but there were people who were making up leases. So the bank came back and said, no, in order to qualify, we're no longer going to just accept a lease unless you have 1 year landlord experience.
Right.
We want to see that you're going to, you have 1 year landlord experience, plus you're going to have to show us a lease anyway.
Yes.
And not only a lease, you have to show us that you got a security deposit for a potential candidate for a future lease.
Right.
So the bottom line, the banks are tightening up. So it's a challenge for most people. If they have a $2,000 mortgage on their current house and they're going to buy another house and have a $3,000 mortgage, it's a challenge for most people to qualify. So in most cases that I've seen, most people, you know, there's some that don't have to. They have to sell their current house.
Right.
So when I pre-approve you, it's going to be contingent upon the sale of your existing home.
Right.
Right. So I make that clear. So when you're out there looking, you have to let your agent know that I'm selling my house, and the proceeds from the sale of this house is going to be used to purchase the new house. And that's how. And you could go with $50,000, $100,000, depending on what you go. So that's why, and that's where my real estate background comes in handy.
Right.
Because I've been on the other side representing the buyer or the seller, telling them how much you're going to walk away with.
Right.
Right. So I'm not like a lot of loan officers. They don't have my real estate background.
Right.
I could structure the deal. I know how to keep the deal together. So, you know, a lot of times when I tell my realtors, I tell them, look, I've been in your shoes. I'm going to keep your deal together. I've been in front of sellers, buyers, you know, so this is where, you know, my real estate background comes in. I could give you some counsel and give you a rough idea what you're going to get, what you're going to walk away with. And I will still refer you to a realtor because that's been 20, 30 years for me, right? So I might not have the exact amount down pat with tax and transfer tax and fees you got to pay, but I'll give you a good ballpark of what you're going to walk away with. And then with that number, we could do a anticipated down payment amount based on what you're going to walk away with.
Now talking about investment, your investment, what do you think about the current market on investing in real estate in Virginia? Well, you can compare Virginia.
I'm going to talk about both because I'm from New York. And, back in the days, you know, New York is just ridiculous now for those of you that live in New York. In the big cities in general, I also, you know, have the ability to look on different sites and see what house values are in DC, in Atlanta, New York. I live in Virginia now, so for me, the people of Virginia thinks it's expensive. But for me, coming from a big city, I don't feel like it's expensive. I could, you know, I compare it to New York. But if you're going to invest in real estate, you have to decide, okay, am I going to buy and hold it? If you're going to buy and hold it, you're looking at cash flow. Right. Everyone has a magic number, how much you're going to walk with every month. Cash flow meaning your mortgage is $2,000, your rent is $2,500, right? That's $500 profit, but then you have to also factor in any utility fees you might have, and any maintenance fee, and then you that's your monthly profit. So everybody has a magic number of how much they want to make every month.
Right.
I personally, I have at least $1,000 a month profit for me.
Yeah.
And the thing about in certain markets, you have to look at what it's going to cost to acquire that property.
Yes.
Let's use in New York, it's 500. Let's use 500,000. So if you're buying a single family rental property, it's 20% down on 500,000, right? If you're buying a duplex or fourplex, it's 25% down, more money down.
Right.
So that's the thing. You got to look at, okay, what is it going to cost me down payment wise, closing cost wise, right? Let's say it's going to cost you, you're buying a fourplex,
Right.
and you're putting 25% down. I'm doing the math in my head. Let's say 150. I don't know, that's not like 25%, but let's assume, right? You 25% plus closing costs, you're going to run you maybe 175,000, right?
Yeah.
So now you're going to say, I'm going to make X amount of profit. I'll make $1,000 profit. Then you got to do the math. How long is it going to take me to get that capital back? How many months and years is going to take me to get that initial investment? That's what you got to look at to see if it's worth doing. There's certain formulas that certain investors use, but that's some of the things I do. I look at what it's going to cost to get that return a dollar. A lot of people talk about they want to get a foreclosure or a house that needs work. The challenge with that is a lot of times those houses are in bad shape.
Right.
It might not pass a bank appraiser. The appraiser is going to go there, and there's no cabinets,
Right.
no countertop. He's going to say, how can I give you a value when the house is not 100% complete? He's going to do the appraisal and say the house is worth this amount, but I have to come back out to confirm it's been finished, the work. Because are you going to put granite on the countertop? Are you going to put quartz? That has to play in value. And that's where the problem becomes, because the lender, if it's a foreclosure,
Right.
they're selling it as is. They're not going to want to do any work to it.
Right.
So those are the conversations I have with folks. That's why real estate comes in, because I've been in those situations.
Right. So what would a average what you call it maintenance fee be for a 3-bedroom home in New York City?
Yeah, well, see, the thing about New York
And
City,
the type of maintenance you
yeah,
have.
I have a brownstone, New York, a multi-unit, and it's I've renovated the whole thing, but what I'm finding is that these buildings are 100 years old, built 1920, 1930. And even though I personally renovated every kitchen, every bathroom, I've changed the plumbing, there's still the master plumbing, the master stack for the plumbing that at some point I'm going to have to replace. So, when you buy these older buildings, you have to take into consideration that it's going to need more work than the standard because of the age.
Yes.
Right. Whereas if you're buying something that's maybe built in 1990,
Right.
it might have the sprinkler system if it's a multi-unit. The older pre-war buildings don't have that, right? And I can tell you that, when everyone wants to be a homeowner,
Right.
So we don't think of these things, right? And sometimes, you live in New York, for example, and that's what you see.
Right.
Brownstones, older buildings, you don't take into consideration you have to do a lot of upgrading.
Yeah.
Especially if you're buying it and the person who owned it didn't do anything.
Yeah. You're talking about the upgrading of it, but I'm talking about the fixed maintenance.
Yeah, well, maintenance have to do the fixed maintenance is you have to upgrade while you like if you're gonna rehab a kitchen.
Yeah.
You want to change all the plumbing,
Right.
all the wiring, right? I always did one apartment at a time. I would do all new plumbing in the kitchen and bathroom, all new wiring. But what I didn't do, I didn't change the main plumbing pipe going through the house,
Right.
which I'm going to have to do. So yeah, you have to keep that in mind. And I always tell people, don't do a patch-up job. Put a new kitchen in, put a new bathroom, change all the plumbing, change all the electrical. Because what's going to happen is you're going to find it's going to cost you more money to open the wall again and do it the right way.
Right. So a couple of years ago, almost around the pandemic, they had this movement of a lot of people moving to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Atlanta became a hot market, and now Atlanta, the rates are going up. The prices of houses are going up in Atlanta. Do you see that happening in Virginia anytime soon?
Well, yeah. the thing about Virginia, as well as a lot of areas surrounding Virginia, like
Mhm.
Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia is kind of expensive.
Right.
But what's carrying the prices, even Florida, you're seeing it.
Right.
You have people leaving the big cities like New York
Yeah.
and California.
Mhm.
They're selling their properties for $900 to $1 million,
Mhm.
and they're going to Virginia. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
I hadn't sold for that much, but I sold a property. I had a house in Queens Village.
Mhm.
And I remember and I'm going off in town, in 2005, I came to Virginia just for a little getaway,
Mhm.
and they were selling 5 bedrooms, 3 baths, brand new, two
Right.
car garage, detached for $350,000.
Mm.
That house in New York City would have been like 800,000, 900,000 around that time.
Yeah.
So I came back, put my house on the market, and bought a house in Virginia. So my point is, people from the East Coast who are selling their house for a ton of money are going to the other areas like Virginia,
Yeah. Right.
right? Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Norfolk, and like I looked at it differently 'cause I know what it costs here, so I didn't
Right.
have a problem paying more,
Right.
right? So when that happens is it carries the prices higher because you have people who have deeper pockets who are coming from outside the area and then they're buying cash.
Right.
That's what's happening now, that there's a lack of inventory.
Mhm.
So the regular buyer doesn't have that type of capital to work with, where you have an out-of-state buyer coming in
Right.
and they'll pay cash for it, right? And they'll knock out the local folks who are trying to get that house.
Mhm.
It's happening a lot. I don't see any way around it, but it is what it is. That's why it's important for before you go looking for a house to get pre-approved.
Right.
A lot of people, not a lot, there's some people don't want to do that.
Mhm.
They rather go look at the house first.
Mhm.
I'll get a call on a Saturday, and the client will tell me, "Hey, I need it pre-approved right away. I want to put a bid in the house." Now, what if I'm not in town?
Mm.
What if I'm at the beach? So it's
Right.
important for you to anyone to get pre-approved first. Know your buying power before you go looking for a house.
What is your first house that you flipped for a profit?
First house I flipped for profit. I'll tell you something. It's all about who you know. About who you know. I had a
Right.
very good friend, and I'm always looking for houses, and I seen a house online, and it was her listing. She was a realtor,
Yeah.
and they were asking, I think, 110,000.
Damn.
4 bedroom, 2 bath ranch, very nice neighborhood in Chesapeake. And I said to her, she said, "Oh, it's already in contract.
Right.
There's a buyer for it."
Right.
And I said, if that deal ever falls through, give me a call.
Yeah.
And sure enough, she gave me a call.
Yeah.
And she said to me, everybody's calling her for that house. Everybody is calling her to buy that house.
But you are a real estate agent, and you know how real estate agents speak.
Yeah. I know how they speak. So
Yeah.
I said, so the difference. Let me tell you what happened. The difference is everyone was calling her because she knows a lot of people.
Yeah.
All the investors were calling her. But the reason I got the deal is that no one offered for her to come in on a deal with them.
Oh.
I said to her, "I'll buy the house, and you pay to rehab it, right? So we'll be joint partners."
Right.
Right. Everyone else was just thinking about themselves, what they can make on it.
Yeah.
No one else invited her to do the deal with them, right?
Right.
And that was the deciding factor, and we ended up buying the house.
Mm-hmm.
We rehabbed it for 6 months, made a nice profit on it. That was the first one. But every flip is a learning experience,
Right.
That one, we learned a few things. One thing I did learn is to have a home inspection up front when you do a flip.
Yeah.
It costs $300-$400, but it's worth it. And the reason why it's worth it is that the home inspection is going to find everything wrong with it.
Right.
It's going to go through the plumbing, electrical, and you can tackle it
Right.
before you find a buyer. Right.
Right.
I didn't do it on that one.
Oh, okay.
When we found a buyer, we realized that our contractors missed some stuff,
Oh.
right? And if we had did a home inspection, we would have seen it,
Yeah.
and we would have told them to do it, like some
Right.
plumbing that needed to replace.
Right.
So that's what it's about. It's about you learning.
Right.
You learn from your mistakes. So that's how it works.
Right. Right. So my last question: what is in the future for Gilroy in investment?
So for me, I'm always looking for a deal, and not just a deal. It has to be the right deal, right? I prefer I call it a home run deal. Where you can't lose. Because right now you have to be conservative. There's a lot of stuff going on in America right now with politics and stuff like that. We don't know where the future is going to bring.
Right.
So for me, if I look at a deal, it's all about the math. The math has to work. I'm buying it for 80 to 100,000, and I'm putting 50, 60,000 in it. I can sell for 300. I can't lose. You know,
Yeah,
a lot of
that's low, 80 to
I'm just
100,000.
giving you an example. It has to
Okay.
be a home run deal. It's not
All
going to
right.
be I'm just giving that number. It can't be a borderline deal
Okay.
where I'm buying it for 150. I'm putting 25,000 in it and myself for 200,000.
Okay,
There's not enough
good.
margin in
Right,
there, right?
right.
I'm looking at, I'm not. It has to be the right situation.
Yeah.
It's all about being in the right place and the right time. It's all about who you know. I've had deals that couldn't come together. I've had deals that we almost they didn't work.
Yeah.
Whatever reason.
So I said before we go, but I would like to know, like, some of your failures when it comes to that, other than
Oh, as far as flips or just
as far as flip.
yeah. Well, I had a deal. It was new construction, and I was doing it with a friend, which is my friend was a builder, and I didn't do my homework on him.
All right.
Yeah, you and I could be buddy,
Yeah.
but I have a different type of work ethic,
Right.
right? When it comes to doing business,
Right.
and he had a Class A licensed builder, and the deal didn't go well because he was wasn't using the best people to do the
Okay.
work, and he was never on site. I got left having to do a lot more than I was supposed to do,
Investment wise.
investment wise, on the deal because we all have a role to play.
Right.
He's the builder, he has the knowledge.
So stuff should have been cheaper.
It should have been cheaper, and I feel honestly that he was taking from my deal and putting it in other deals that he's
Okay.
working on, right?
Right.
So it's a learning experience. How we end up. I did sell a house, and it's just a learning experience. You really got to do a good job, regardless if it's a friend or whoever it is. You got to
Right.
check their background. You got to vet them. You got to see their work. You got to check the community. To make sure that person is reputable. Because what happens, I'll say this, your name is your reputation. I have a lot of integrity.
Right.
If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I don't want to have to dodge anybody.
Right.
I would do the right thing all the time, right? Do a quality product, quality work. And I said to him, pick the best tile guy, pick the best drywall, the best painter. You can't keep lowballing people and get the cheapest. Cheapest is not the best. I mean, nobody wants to pay top dollar, but you gotta pay people what they're worth. So that was, and again, everything is learning. You have to, you're gonna learn as you go, make mistakes.
Right.
And sometimes, that's how it is. It's a school of hard knocks. When I did real estate, I learned from my mistakes.
Right.
So now I'm a fine tuning, and I learn from that experience what not to do.
Right.
Okay.
Right. All right. Thanks for having you, Gilroy.
Yeah, no problem.
Mr. Lino.
Yes, sir.
I'll see you again.
Thank you. All right.
Yes. Thanks, everybody.
Would like to contact Gilroy Lino and know a little bit more about financing, or want to get a loan, or a personal loan, or a loan, or a mortgage for a house, I have the description below. And please like, subscribe to this video. Thank you for watching.